Morning people, happy Monday, or actually for the youth of today, happy 420. Sure you know what I mean by that, but not up here. Right, you will notice that today, no hat. It happened, the COVID cut. I'm quite pleased with it, to be honest. I got up this morning and I looked in the mirror, went to clean my teeth, and I thought, oh, I put myself in mind of one of those, I don't know whether they're still about today, but back in the 70s when I was a kid, we had Action Man, like army doll things, and they always had exactly the same length hair on their head, on their face, usually grey as well, as it turns out, as I turned out. Yeah, so I looked in the mirror and I thought, oh, I'll have that, Action Man. Girl's done well, really. Well, they're saying that I didn't actually have an Action Man back then. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. I had the other fella. What was his name? G.I. Joe. Oh my God, he was useless. Action Man had all moving parts and he could grip different weapons and every joint moved. G.I. Joe, he just had solid plastic arms that just went up and down, and that's about all you could get out of him. And Action Man also had a little cord in the back he used to pull, and had a built-in voice box with loads of sort of inspirational battle cries and what have you, but G.I. Joe had none of that. But anyway, but as promised, with the COVID cut, I did video it all. So I'm going to show you that now because it is quite amusing, to be honest. We've had quite a lot of amusing things in the house. It's horrible that we're all locked down, and it's a hideous, pandemic out there. It's doing a lot of harm to a lot of people. But there is also an upside. I think that the social side of it within families and that, you've got to get along with each other. And we've had some right old laughs in our house. So I'm going to show you just one of them.
Whatever happens, I'm not going to get annoyed at you, Mum.
Are you sure about that? You do love your hair.
I'm not sure.
He loves his mum.
It's got some hair. Look at this, right? How on earth are you going to cut that, right?
But he does love his mum.
He does love his mum. And scarily I'm next, but I'm glad the practice is happening on you. That is what you call Dutch courage when you're waiting for the barber's chair.
Can I have one?
Alright, stand up.
Too late.
You look quite good now.
You ain't done bad, Mum.
Here we go. COVID cut. The bottle of wine's empty, that's all that's left. I've got my Dutch courage. Confident, maybe?
No.
No?
No.
What number you got it on?
2.
3?
I ain't got 3.
Alright, we're going for a 2 then. Oh my God, I'm scared. Four. Okay.
It's not that short anyway, look. Have a quick glance.
Blind you.
I think
I'm happy with that.
gently and then thought, actually, that's alright.
Good one. Right, here we go. The finished article. I'm quite happy with that. Proper job, well done. I know the best of times I made like a hard-boiled egg with a bit of straw on top, but it's not too bad. But now I can get my own back. Ta-da! Here we go. You sure you're going to let me do this? Now do this bit at the front, haven't it? Come on.
Do what you like.
Really? Yeah?
Yes.
Wow. I'm a barber.
You had a bottle of wine, actually.
Yeah, only all of it. Actually, Billy, you can do this. I'm scared. There we go. She was probably right to get me to hand over the clippers to Billy, to be honest. There was been far too much red wine consumed to turn into some sort of a hairdresser, but there you go. Anyway, moving on, moving back into the 90s again. I left you all, I left you all with the party. I got some great comments about the party. Obviously I had to edit a fair amount of it out, not for public consumption, but you get the general idea, I'm sure. So after that season, in that close season, we intended to carry on with our pre-baiting plan. But it became apparent really quick that a lot of other people had got the same idea. We'd been very, very successful the first year on mainline. We had, slaughtered the place. And we'd caught a massive percentage of the whole, years total for the whole syndicate. There was a huge percentage of that was just between the four of us. I think I'd had 16 fish on my own, and if you bear in mind the first year, the guy that had the most, Weedbed Willie, I think he had 9, and then I had 7. So this year I'd had 16, which was a lot of fish from a place like Horton. And the other lads had all had decent catches as well. So yeah, the first couple of times we went down, there was other people always baiting up. So we decided not to get sort of dragged into some sort of a bait war. The fish already liked our bait, they knew what it was. So we just cut it right down and only fed fish that we saw. So, if we were up there, one of us was up there, it was our baiting day, and you'd find 3 or 4 fish in the corner, you'd give them a kilo of bait just to remind them what it was. But there was none of the heaving it in willy-nilly sort of thing. And it still worked, the bait carried on, it was a good bait, and we had the confidence in it that we weren't going to fail. So the beginning of the season rolled around, we were having another draw. We'd noticed throughout the close season there wasn't a lot of weed. As I've said before, it was a very, very weedy lake. But at the beginning of that year, I think there was an early algae bloom throughout the close season in the spring, and it had held back the weed growth. Now that sort of told us that the fish would be out there in the middle. I mean, they like the middle when the pressure of the first couple of days of the season that push them out there anyway. But if there's no weed, they were definitely going out in the middle. So we were quite keen, our little band, to get somewhere where we could plop them out in the middle. And we had a new member this year as well, little Robbie. He'd had a couple of fish, but he hadn't had a big one. Like I say, he was CP's best mate, and we brought him into the fold, if you like. So there was now 5 of us in our little bait team. Start of the season, we wanted to get out there. There had been a bit of confusion before on the last year's draw as to where's where, because we'd named a lot of the swims. Like I say, the lake was a trout lake beforehand and didn't have all these silly names for swims. A couple of them were named, but now we'd got the salt circle, we'd got the ski slope, various other swims that we'd named. So what I got loads of sheets of paper and sellotaped them all together and made a 6-foot by 4-foot map of the lake. And I wrote all the swims, on there in my crappy little handwriting, all the way round. And I took that to the draw so that if somebody drew number 3, they could look at, rather than saying, I'm going over there next to that tree, but they didn't mean that tree, they meant that tree. It would take the confusion out of it. They could look on the map, say I'm going to the salt circle, put a little tick next to the salt circle, that's taken. As it turned out, we had a diabolical draw, we being our little group. I think Robbie had the best at there's quite a few new members and quite a few people at the draw. I think Robbie got 13 or something like that. I was way bigger numbers than that, rubbish. But my little map came right in handy because the swim, now if you cast your mind back, we had the ski slope and we had the reeds. The reeds was where I'd caught at the beginning of the first year. That whole bank, produced fish, but the one in the middle, the one that Keith blanked in, and then I moved into and I blanked in when he had what turned out to be lumpy from next door. So the middle of the 3 swims on that church bank, the potato field bank, the pub bank, we'd named the blank because for some reason it hadn't done fish, whereas it was all the same section of water, just coincidentally it hadn't done much, this one. So I'd written on the map the blank. Of course, a lot of new members in the draw. No one's going to pick a swim called the blank, are they? So they're picking the ski slope, they're picking here, they're picking the church bay, all the things they've read about and heard about, and looked in the old log books and seen the different swims that produce fish. The blank stayed empty until my number, which was like 20 or something, came around, and I just thought, that'll do for me. So I shot my gear around there, got all set up in the blank. The lake was busy. And it was mayhem, absolute mayhem. There were people, there was plumbing floats going out, there was bait going in, and it was just, they were thrashing it to a foam out there. And I sat there and I looked at it and I thought, I'm not going to compete with this, you know, I'm not getting involved, I'm not getting dragged into this. And I think I had a word with Keith and said, the best thing we can do is not cast about in our swims, is not put any bait into the swims, is just leave it. You know, we know they're going to go out there. So best if it's totally undisturbed. If they're swimming around, there's piles of bait everywhere, there's leads coming in and this, that and the other. And we had all day to bait up, to plumb, to prepare. So we decided that the very best place to prepare was in the pub. So we did nothing. We just got the rods ready, walked across the potato field, down past Katie's, into the Bells, and stayed in there for a fair old time. I seem to remember that was quite a good day. It was a really hot day, obviously, June the 16th. It was a warm day, and we were sat out in the beer garden, and all sorts. I mean, there was me, Keith, I remember Reg was there. There was quite a lot of us, and more were drifting across the field throughout the day. And it was one of them where you get the beers down you, and then it got round to the arm wrestling stage. Yeah, and you know when a group of blokes are there and it gets to the arm wrestling stage that you probably all had far, far too much to drink, because that's just like end of, isn't it? You know, Reg was determined that he could beat me, and I was determined. Reg is a strong little fellow. He was only a wiry little thing, but he was quite good at it. And I can't remember who won what, but I do remember we was out there like idiots, all arm wrestling and cheering and whooping and what have you, and drinking, obviously. So sometime in the early evening, we all wandered back, staggered back, wove our way back round the potato field. I was all right. My swim was nice and close. I was on that bank. Got in there, got the rods out before the 8 o'clock start or whatever it was, and all settled in to see, you know, what would happen. All full of excitement, brand new season, everything to play for. So, unbelievably, midnight rolled past, not a bite to anyone. Early hours of the morning rolled past, not a bite to anyone. Most of us was up at first light. I was sat out there on my low chair in the blank swim, looking out, scanning the water, and there weren't even really a lot of signs of fish. Still, no one had had a bite. Bite time came and went, sun came out, warmed up, got to about mid-morning, lunchtime, whatever. Still, nobody had had a bite. No one had really seen an awful lot. It was dead. It was absolutely dead. The day passed by. I think we had a big, one of our sort of picnic things on the bank, over on the church bank, and there was some socials, barbecues burning on the other bank. You know, everyone had sort of thought, well, it hasn't happened by now, you know, it's going to be the next night. Wound in and, you know, just had a nice big social and all chilling out. But no, the main topic of conversation was, you know, where are the fish? What's happened? You know, this is the first day of the season. And then people start fretting. Has they had too much bait throughout the close season? Have all these various baiting teams just filled them up? Are they just not hungry? Are they waiting to spawn? This, that, the other, you know, what the hell is going wrong? No one had a bite. Anyway, the evening came, we all got back, cast them all out again. Again, nothing. All through the night, not a single bite. This is the beginning of the season. There's people in every swim. Nothing's happening. I was up most of the night. I couldn't sleep that night. I was sort of just thinking, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I fish pop-ups off the lead? You know, have we all got it wrong? Someone's got to be on fish. And then out there in front of me, probably midnight-ish, you know, whatever, middle of the night-ish, bosh, one's come out. They're out there, you know, they're getting out there. And then another one, and all through the night along this strip in front of my swim, the middle of the street, and the other two swims, one each side. I can see fish, you know, against the moonlight. It's a proper dark night, but there's a moon over the back, and it's all sort of silhouetting them. And you can actually see the fish, you know, dark, coming up out there. And I thought, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Of course, you can't sleep at all then, can you? You're sort of hovering over the rods. But again, you know, nothing happened at very, very first light. and I don't know, let's say, it was getting on a little bit, you know, the sun was up, so maybe 7 o'clock, something like that. Eventually, I've got a single beep. I've looked at the rod, go on. It's gone up, whack, away it's gone. First bite, 2 days in, first bite of the season. So I'm up there, I've hit this fish. And there was a snag on the right-hand side of the swim. Like I say, there was no real weed out there. When the weed was up, it was better, because whatever this snag was get draped in weed and it wouldn't be as savage. But I've hooked this fish, and it's kited around and gone donk straight in the snag. I thought, oh no. So I put the pressure on him, can't move him. As I'm tugging and pulling, trying to bounce him out of this snag, whack, the other rod's gone. I'm like, Jesus. So I struck that one with the other hand. So I've got one in each hand. I've got carp in each hand. No one else said anything yet. So I put down the snag rod, and I've played the second bite, got him in, netted him. I think he was a mirror starburst, it was. So low 20 mirror, popped him in the net. Had another go at the other one, and it's come out the snag. So I've managed to play that in, net that as well, and that was, if memory serves, it was a common. It was definitely a common. It was like 19 pound or something like that, upper double common. So there I am. I've got 2 fish in the net, or nets. Can't remember. Might have even had 2 nets by now. 2 fish on the bank. You know, first 2 bites of the season. I'm cock-a-hoot. You know, I'm like, this is the one, and they're still showing out there, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm having it. Definitely having it. Everyone's up and looking, and you know, like, oh, bites at last. Anyway, a couple of the lads have come running around and do the photos and that. We put the mats and all that, because in the blank swim, like all of those, they're down by the water, and the potato field is actually probably 8 foot higher than we are, you know, behind us. So they've all got like little steps or slopes into them. So on the high bit at the top, which is where we used to have our picnics and our socials and piss-ups and what have you, someone's laid out the mats and got everything ready. A couple of camera guys have come round. We've got no video of this. I should actually say at this point, this 3rd year we had a video. We had another one of these VHSs of the 3rd year. Unfortunately, we can't find it. We can't find any digitalised footage of it, and I don't seem to have a copy of the original VHS. I can picture the old videos, but there won't be any, because no one knows where they are now. But I'm sure there was a video camera up there. Anyway, got these 2 fish. I think I'd sacked them both while everyone was sorting everything out. I remember now, I'd sacked them both off the front cord of my bank stick. So I've gone down there, everyone's ready, and I've just started to lift the cord on the sack, and the rod butt, I've cast them both back out, the rod butt next to me is just lifted in the air, and it's there. And I've thought I've obviously got it caught on my jumper or whatever, and then the spool just started spinning, and I've got another bite. So I've got 2 there in bags, and I've got one on here. So I've hooked this one. Of course, I've got a crowd now, haven't I? They're all round for the photos. I'm playing this fish. I kid you not. Someone comes down and gets the net. Can't remember who it was. It might have been CP or Keith. Someone's come down and got the net. Then someone else has come down to have a look. Then they've all come down. And you've seen from some of the other footage how everyone tends to get right in the swim. But it got to a stage where I'm actually standing behind a crowd of people playing this fish over their heads, and they're all in there trying to have a look, trying to get the first glimpse at what it is and say what fish it is. I couldn't even see what I was doing. I just kept sort of pumping and pumping, and I see it roll up on the surface, and I kept coming basically till someone said stop. You know, it's in the net. And, oh, it's a big one, it's a monster, it's this, that and the other. And I'm thinking, yeah, result. Everything was set up ready, so I thought we'll do this fish first, because it's in the net. I've got no more sacks. So everyone's shot back up the top, and I've oiked it out, and it is a big fish, proper big lump. Dragged it up, it's gone on the mat, and I've gone back down to the rod, maybe to cast it out while everyone's dealing with it. And I've heard them up there, someone's gone, what fish is it, what fish is it? And then I've heard CP go, it's mine, it's mine. I thought, what's he talking about? He said, it's mine from on the causeway last year. And then someone else goes, oh, it's CP's fish, it's CP's fish. And that is the moment that fish got called CP's. Poor thing. Anyway, it went on the scales, and I wasn't even, I was there, but everyone else was just getting involved. and they weighed it, 40 pounds 6 ounces. I was like, that'll do, 40 pounds 6 ounces. So we done all the photos, and for some reason it got. Oh, somebody then appeared with a tripod, and I thought, oh, we'll weigh it. I don't know why, because it put on so much weight. Someone appeared with a tripod, and we thought we'd weigh it properly. I'd weigh it properly, so we put them on the tripod, and it was actually 39 pounds 6. And what had happened? I haven't got a set up here, but on those round dial scales, which we'd now gone up to, we'd gone on from the Avons, we'd gone to like Reuben Heaton's. If you hold them on the side, which you should never do, it actually adds quite a lot to the weight, because the spring mechanism goes up through the scales, and the hook on the top is an integral part of the actual spring balance built inside. So you've always got to hold them, or get one of the little bars or whatever, and hold them from the ring on the top. On the sides adds weight. We did some tests afterwards, and I think at £20 it added half a pound, and at £40, as this was registering, it added, or £39 it added a pound. So basically, unless you're holding them by the ring or hanging them up by the ring, your readings might not always be that accurate, might be a little bit on the generous side. So we took the 39 pounds 6 ounces. While this was all happening, I think we were just getting ready for the photo, to actually take the photos, and I've heard bip bip, and I've looked down, and it's away again. But the problem was this time I was using new reels. I'd upgraded from these little fellas, and I had some bait runners. Now, in the old bit of lost video, I remember seeing that where everybody was helping me when I'd landed CPs, and there were so many people there, the rods was getting moved about, stuff was getting interfered with, and someone had moved my rod across, and as they'd done so, it a bit slack, they'd just turn the handle a little bit, and that had disengaged the bait runner and put it in gear. I didn't know this till I got this fourth bite, 4 bites in 45 minutes. It lasted about 2 seconds, went beep beep, the rod pulled as tight as it could, singingly tight, and then there was a big audible crack as the line just exploded, because obviously it couldn't take any line off the reel. So that fish was gone. But we dealt with the CP's one, and then had the other 2 out as a brace shot on the mat, old school brace shot. You don't see many of them nowadays. Yeah, with Starburst and this other one. But, as far as I was concerned, I'd done it. I'd had 3 fish on the bank, no one else had had a bite. It was perfect. My whole plan had come into being, and the blank swim was no longer the blank swim, and it had stayed free for me because of the name. There were anglers on the other bank. Decibel was dead opposite me in the capture returns, I believe. And unbeknown to me, while we'd all been up the top doing the photos, he'd clocked on and thought, Laney's battering him over there. He'd wound one in and given it what you might call a very ambitious cast. He admitted afterwards it landed right on my spot where he'd seen me casting. And he had a bite shortly after, while we were all still there celebrating, drinking tea and whatever. He had a bite, and he had, I believe it was the koi, over 40 pound, which was a record weight for that fish at that time. So that's where they were. They were bulked up in the middle out there, and they were having it. So as well as the sort of existing original members, the new members on the lake that first week, we also had the Lovies. Now, the Lovies were a film crew, and they were down with Alan Taylor. Now, I don't know how many of you knew Alan Taylor. Lovely bloke, hilarious man. Unfortunately, he passed away, I believe it was last year, well before his time. But if you don't know Al, I'll describe him: small, bald, massive smile, always cracking jokes, had a wicked sense of humour. And he'd got this crew, this film crew, were making a documentary, sounds a bit flash, but making a film, basically, with him. I can't remember the title of the film, but he did a few episodes on different lakes. So this is before your sort of blogs and vlogs and all that sort of stuff. So I assume it might have been on tape at the time, can't remember. Anyway, he had this film crew down with him. Now the film crew They were quite bizarre, actually. One of them was really camp. They didn't get it at all. You know, they weren't fishing people. They'd go away at night and sleep in a local hotel, and then get up in the morning and have their breakfast, and then turn up down the lake at whatever, 10 o'clock, not realising that everything that happens in carp fishing happens from about 3 o'clock in the morning until about 9 o'clock in the morning, so they'd miss a lot of it. Luckily, Al did manage to get a couple of day bites, and they got all this on film. They were more interested, always, they seemed to be, in the planes. The director or whatever was obsessed with these planes. When I saw the finished production, it starts off, in fact I've found a bit, there is some on the internet, if you search, I don't know, Alan Taylor, Horton video or what, whatever, you'll find bits and pieces of it, you might even find the whole thing, but it starts off with all these planes, and I've managed to, only with like filming off the screen, I've managed to get a little tiny bit of it, might be quite poor, but we'll give it a go.
This carp angler's paradise has only one drawback. The planes! Me, I love them.
Yeah, I don't think Al's actually had as many new mates ever as that he did that week. Well, I say week, it was actually, they were there for 2 weeks on and off. You couldn't just walk past them. Of course, back then, a film crew on the bank was really unusual. Nowadays, you see it quite often, people doing, tackle promotion, bait promotion. I do it, I sometimes have a little film crew with me. But back then, it was an oddity. And the Lovies were a complete oddity. Just for comedy value alone, it was worth stopping and speaking to them. But anyone that walked past couldn't just walk round the back of Al. He was on the causeway, and just leave him to it. You had to go in. You had to go along and say hello, because you wanted your 1 minute of fame, your 30 seconds on camera, just hoping that you could say something amusing enough that you'd be in the final cut. I missed out, actually. I did miss out, because would have been the third morning of the season, that they wanted some fish, obviously, on this, and I think Al had said, if you get anything, give us a shout, and I'd forgotten, and I caught what was then my personal best common. I think it was my last morning of the trip, which was a fish called the Thorpe Park common. I believe it had only gone in that winter out of Thorpe Park, and I was the first one to catch it, and it was £32, which is a big fish, was a big fish, still is a big fish, big common. We did the photos, and I slid it back, and then afterwards, I thought, oh God, I could have got the Lovies round. I could have been there with the 30-pounder, but I wasn't. But when I turned up for my next session, I thought, I'm going to get on there if it kills me. So I'm going to go and set up next to Al. And he was still on this causeway bank. And I remember we walked along there in the morning, and Fat Sam would be running along in front. And the causeway separates Horton from the boat pool, which was back then was more of a catfish water. There's a lot of good carp in there now, lots. But back then it was mainly catfish with the odd sort of common, not much in the way of carp, but mainly cats. But anyway, it also was home to a few geese, like Katie's geese had gone on there because they'd had young, and obviously there's more anglers on the main lake, on the church lake, not hassling them, but they wanted somewhere quiet to raise their young. So these, I don't know if they were Canadas or grey legs, I can't remember. But anyway, these two geese, I think they were grey legs, had gone just down the back of the causeway with their young. Now, like all animals, when geese have got young, they get pretty arsey if you go anywhere near them. And as you walk along pushing your barrow load of gear along, they'd come and they'd hiss and, try and be all scary. But, they're not going to hurt you. But they might chase you up the causeway and try and nip your bum a bit as you go past. But Fat Sam ran ahead of me, ran straight up to the first bivvy, which I think was Al's, as she always did, straight in there, see if there's any food, have they left anything laying about, am I going to get a biscuit or a bit of sausage, will they be cooking breakfast, she was always on the game, Fat Sam. So she's run up there, and this goose has come flying up the little mound from behind the reeds on the boat pool, and just chased her. Like, you know, when their necks go dead straight out and they're hissing and thing, and it's bit her on the bum. Its wings are out flat, its head's right down, it's proper angry. And it's bit her on the arse. As she's gone back, she went mental. She just legged it. And from that day forward, she would never, ever walk along that piece of causeway in a straight line. Even after the geese had long gone, she'd get down to there and she'd be looking around all suspiciously. And she used to go right down to the edge by the lake, trot along and then come back up. She just gave, that was like the danger area, the attack zone. And she always remembered, and she always gave it this real big wide berth to go through there. But anyway, after this, I spoke to Al. He'd had a couple of fish. It was a sort of shallower bit at the end of the lake, down towards the plough. And I plotted in next to him because it's getting warm and the fish are going up that end. He's had a couple of bites, and I wanted to be on film. You know, I wanted to be in their little production. So I sat up next to him, and in very short order, I caught one. I had a fish called the dumpy mirror, and it was dumpy. It's a little round thing. I'm not sure if I've got a photo. If I have got a photo, it'll pick up any time now, but I'm not sure if I can find a photo of that. I did look the other day. Yeah, very deep, round sort of fish. Had four, like dice gets 4 dots. It equally spread. It had 4 scales on one side and not on the other. But yeah, lovely little mirror, 22 pounds, something like that. But I managed to get on the film, and I got in the finished production, so it was sort of job done. Had me moment of glory in our film, but no, that was good. They were a good couple of weeks with the lovies on there. It was very amusing. They were a weird bunch, but yeah, if you can go on the internet and give it a search and see if you can find it. It's well worth a watch. So over the next few weeks, I done really well. I don't know why Keith didn't do very well on that 3rd year at all. In fact, a few people struggled, and I say I don't know why. I do know why. I didn't make a big song and dance of it at the time, but something became apparent to me quite quickly, and that was the fish didn't seem very willing to feed over beds of bait. And you know, I could only assume it's because now, you know, whereas the first year there were 4 of us doing it, now everyone was doing it. Everyone was piling in bait, thinking the more bait, the more bites. But that only works when there's a handful of you up to it. When everyone's on it, it can go totally the opposite way. And that's what happened on that 3rd year on Horton. I sussed out, I'd seen, you know, in my stalkings about, and me climbing up trees and looking in through the reeds, because don't forget we're talking, although it's 18, 20 foot deep in a lot of places, you've got the marginal shelf, it's gin clear. You can see down 12, 13 foot in places. So there's a lot of opportunity for actually watching the fish feed, you know. Put a rig down there, they'll probably bugger off, but if you get in there, put a handful of bait in 4 or 5 spots around the lake, and then do another circuit, you know, stopping for a while for a cup of tea and a smoke with all your mates on the way, and then so you've left it for a while and go back and check. Quite often there'll be fish on it. Wasn't so much the case, you know. You get back and there'd still be a pile of bait, and on a couple of occasions I'd seen fish come in, see the bait and visibly spook off, and I thought, they're not liking this, you know. They're feeding, they're wanting to feed, but they're not willing to feed on that big pile of round boilies on the bottom. They're wising up to that sort of approach, if you like. So I started fishing singles. I mean pure singles, just hook baits. So I'd still got me little stolen from Alfred's box on my squeaky trolley, a couple of rods, and I'd move around a lot, and if I saw fish, any indication of fish at all, I'd just flip a single on them. Little 1 ounce running lead, long nylon hook link, single bait, just lay the rod down and wait, and if nothing happened, I'd move on. If I was going to get a bite, I was usually getting a bite straight away. You know, you put it out there within 4 or 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, a short space of time, it'll be away, and you'd have a fish and the rest would woof, they'd go. So you'd be off on your heels again round the lake and just single bait fishing. And I did do quite well over that sort of, what would that have been, July period, I suppose. But I had a lot of comments. I don't know whether it's because the style, the way I was fishing, but I did have a lot of comments in that period. They're beautiful fish, absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous fish, and they ruck like mad. You know, quite often you'd end up you'd have to get the boat out and everything. The weed was getting up again. Although I said it was bald at the beginning, once it started to take a hold. In Horton, the weed could grow about a foot a day, you know, because it was so gin clear and so rich, so massively rich, that water. That once it started going, it's just like forests were appearing. So quite often you'd get in there, chuck out, have a quick bite, but you'd end up having to go down and get the boat or whistle up someone to bring the boat, have the battle royal, destroy the swim, do the pictures, and then away again. That was sort of the way that I fished throughout most of July, I suppose. And the good thing about being mobile like that is you get to speak to everybody on the lake. You get to join in everything. You know, you're not over the other side, nailed down on a big bed of bait and you don't want to wind in. So I'd get to, you know, have a social with CP and Robbie over there. I'd get to join in every one of the picnic things. They'd become huge by now. The afternoon picnics or the early evening sort of piss-ups, really. They'd become, the gatherings were getting bigger and bigger. I mean, we had some amazing times on that causeway bank because it's the first place everyone turns up. You know, you come in the car park, walk down the causeway, and they'd just join in. So you get anglers turn up after work to do an overnight. They might not even get to fish. You know, by the time they'd staggered off from you, they're like, oh, I can't be bothered. I'm going to go and sleep in the lodge for the night. But the result of these gatherings was the rubbish. And we ended up having like a rubbish game. So what had happened, you know, you'd be in, I don't know, say you'd be in my swim, there'd be 10 people at the back of my swim on the high bank behind or whatever. And you'd all be having some cans and you'd be doing the arm wrestling and you'd be playing the stupid games and what have you. And you might have a carry out or someone might do a curry. So in the morning, I'd wake up and I'd go up and there would just be a bomb site behind my bivvy. There'd be, you know, it's all been sort of tidied up, as in kicked into a pile. But there's, you know, there's all the remnants of everybody's cast off beer cans, bowls, food containers, dirty plates, everything. So everyone had bin liners, big black bin liners. So you'd scoop everything up, clean up every dog end, every roach, every can, everything. I mean, we never left any litter. You know, I hate litter. I absolutely can't stand it. There's no reason whatsoever. There's no excuse for litter on a lake. And this was spotless. Horton was spotless. But in the morning, you'd have to clear up your swim, and you clear up your swim and you put it all into a bin liner, all many carrier bags, all knotted up. So you'd have this pile of crap behind your bivvy. So when it got towards the end of the session, you'd start thinking, I've got to take all that shit home with me. But you didn't want to take all that shit home with you. You wanted someone else to take all that shit home with you. So, as I've said before, we had these dome tents. You know, in the summer I don't use them, but a lot of the lads used them throughout the whole year. They didn't have a summer brolly, and they just had the dome tent. And where they peg out, where the fly sheet pegs out at the back, it leaves quite a big cavity underneath. So you've got your inner dome and you've got your outer fly sheet, and there's a bit of a hidden space underneath. Just about the right size for a black bin liner full of shit. So what we used to do was, say if it was my swim, you know, some hours before packing up, I'd pick up the old bag, hide it behind your leg and just sort of mosey along. See someone that's not paying attention or is next door or whatever, underneath the fly sheet with the bag. You'd pack up and go. But it grew from that, because then that person, when they're packing up, thinks, oh, Laney, you bastard, you've done me again. They then wouldn't want to take the rubbish home, so they'd go and do it to somebody else. And it got ridiculous in the end. People go back to their swims, people that weren't going, you know, in the evening, open their sleeping bag to get into bed, and it would be full of bags of rubbish. They'd be just hidden everywhere. But obviously whoever was left with these bags of rubbish had to take them home. So yeah, that was the rubbish game, and that went on and on. I do remember potatoes being involved as well. When the potatoes were in season in the potato field, people used to go over there and hand dig up half a dozen potatoes and hide them all in people's tackle bags. Sleeping bags was the best one. If you lifted a sleeping bag and put 3 or 4 spuds underneath it onto the mattress and then smoothed it down, you couldn't actually see them until they got into bed, and then they're like, bloody hell, and ruddling around with these big lumps sticking in them, and they'd get out and have a look, and there was 4 King Edwards stuck under there. But that's just the way we amused ourselves, I suppose. So I don't know, I suppose it must have been around, still probably the beginning of July, while I was doing me moving about and me single bait fishing. I did have one other little ace up my sleeve. There was, I've said about the Church Bay and what a good area it is for fish. Now the Church Bay's got a main swim on one side, which is the mouth of the Church Bay, which is where I fed them on the surface before I caught Jack. It's got the bottom of the bay where there wasn't really any swims. There was one tiny swim in the corner, which was called Phil's Corner. Phil Thompson used to fish in there just under his rod tips. And on the far side, opposite the mouth swim, there was what I consider probably the main Church Bay swim. It's only small. It's called the Church Bay Steps. In fact, funnily enough, I fished there. I did one night in there. The winter's just gone, because the ticket I've got over there now allows me to fish all of the lakes. It's like a media ticket. And just for nostalgia, I went and fished in the winter in this Church Bay Steps, and I caught myself an 18-pound common. Which was great, because although Horton's sort of changed, the swims are a bit more sculpted and what have you, it's still pretty much quite similar. It's a lot more overgrown. In fact, it's far prettier now than it ever was back then. It's a beautiful lake now. It's got some massive fish. It's got, I don't know, a number of 50-pounders in there. Let's say 5. It's got a lot of big fish in there. But I fished in that Church Bay Steps this winter. And caught an 18-pound common, and it was great fun. I just did the one night, had this fish, just brought back some memories. Anyway, where was I? I've done it again on a tangent. So this Church Bay Steps swim, I had actually been baiting that, but I've been baiting it with hemp, because I realised like they was getting a bit spooky on them. They wanted to eat the boilies, they just didn't want a load of it. So I'd been baiting 2 spots in there with hemp, and I'd done a couple of single nights in there. I hadn't caught, but I had noticed that the hemp had worked. There was 2 clear spots. One was quite defined. I think that was the left-hand spot was quite defined. The right-hand spot was a bit harder to hit. You've got 17, 18 feet of water. We're only talking underarm. 17, 18 foot in depth. And I think the weed was probably 12, 13, maybe even 14 foot high. There's a lovely tree on the right, which is still there actually, and you could climb up that and look down, and you could see, you'd see yay amount of gin clear water, and then you'd see this forest of green. So any fish that came in, you'd see them because they'd be on top of the weeds. So it was like watching them in 4 or 5 foot water. And you could see these 2 clear holes. You couldn't see the bottom in the hole, but you could see like where the weed wasn't. And one of them, if you flicked the lead in, it just went straight down, donk onto the bottom. The other one was a bit patchy on the way down, but with a bit of effort on the right-hand hole, you could get it down there. And at some time, sort of mid-July, I suppose it must have been, I remember I was round there. I mean, I'll never forget, because it's the fish communicate, yeah, and you see fish jump, and fish jump for different reasons, and I'm pretty convinced there's a lot more going on there than you think. They might jump because they've got parasites, they might just be itching their skin, but I also think they jump to clear their gills out when they've been feeding hard in the silt. That's a pretty given, most people know that. They definitely jump for communication, without a shadow of a doubt. I've seen it happen so many times. You're up a tree and you see a fish jump over here, and he jumps twice, and a fish that you can see on the surface right down there changes its direction and swims straight up the lake to where he's jumped. I won't have it that doesn't happen, because I've seen it happen so many times. And what happened to me this morning in the Church Bay Steps swim will remain with me, because it was such clear-cut communication. So I'm up this tree. Excuse me, I've run out of water. So what am I going to drink? We know, don't we? I've had a few questions about the moonshine. What is it? Where'd you get it? I don't know. I picked it up at a carp show. It's called O'Donnell Tough Nut Moonshine. You'll see that. But I had one bloke, I'm doing the tangent again, and I had one bloke send me a screenshot, and this is scary. This is what social media and you know, the internet algorithms and that can do. He sent me a screenshot of one of these blocks, yeah, and he'd scrolled down a little bit so that you could see the top of this, at you know, my Facebook post at the top of his screen, and right below it was an advert for this, yeah, and I can only assume that that's because that's been sat there. Now, how scary is that? It was that day, you know, I'd posted it that day, and as soon as it came up, he sent me this screenshot and said, "That's weird." I said, "Yeah, that is weird." I mean, what happens there? Does the internet zoom in on that? You know, is it because I say moonshine? But it was the exact brand. It was that exact one, the same flavour. It comes in 3 flavours. The same thing. Advert for that right below my post. That's proper spooky. Anyway, now we've poured it, we might as well have some. That's better. So where was I? I was up a tree. So, I'm up a tree in the church bay. I'm looking down, lovely sunny day. See the tops of the weed everywhere. I see 2 fish coming in. One common, one mirror. Both, let's say mid-20s. Come down the lake, come down sort of past the ski slopey area, mouth of the church bay, and they've come in. And as they've come in, they've come up and they're over the top of this weed. So they're, you know, green background, 5 foot, gin clear water. Can see every single scale, can see their gills pumping, see their little pecks going, keeping them balanced, what have you. So, the first one's come over. I think it's the mirror that's come over. And he's come straight to the hole. I mean, they're getting, you know, not a lot, but they're getting fed hemp here on a regular basis, so they're coming and having a look. There's enough going in there that they've cleared the bottom. So, in he's come. Just come straight over the hole, tilted down, head down, blown a few bubbles out, blow the old air tanks and flicker the tail, and down he's gone. And I've seen him go down, sort of spiral around the hole, and then he's winked out of existence as he's got too deep for me to see, because you're trying to look out down a tunnel, so you can only see so far. Down he's gone. A few little pinprick bubbles come up. Now his mate's just, I don't know, 2 rod lengths away, but there's like a wall of weed separating the bit where it comes up higher on the mouth. So he's behind this wall of weed and he's a bit agitated. I'm up the tree. Now, this is what I think, right? I think that fish could see me. You know, I wasn't hidden up the tree, I was just hanging out the tree. This fish isn't looking too happy, he's going up and down. I think he could see me looking in. Next thing, this fish has just stuck its head out on its side and carried on milling about. Then it's come up halfway out and gone over with a quite loud for the height it's come out. This fish is still down the hole. Then this one's come out and just gone bosh on the surface. The second he's done it, this fish has shot up out the hole, swum straight over to him. They've touched flanks and they've both swum out the bay and disappeared. Now I am totally convinced that whether this fish saw me or not, I think it did, but that's immaterial. This fish knew it was danger. Something wasn't as it should be. And this fish was calling the fish out of this hole. Didn't know where he'd gone, calling him. I mean, it went from a gentle roll to half a roll to a frantic thrash on the surface. And this fish in the hole instantly responded. And didn't just come up to see him. As soon as he got near him, woof, away they went. You know, clear-cut communication as far as I'm concerned. And scary, you think, God, you know. But probably because I had a bright pink t-shirt on, a pair of white shorts and a stupid hat, you know. I probably wasn't that well camouflaged. Maybe there is something in the real tree, who knows. Anyway, later that day, that same day, again back up the tree, I've seen some other fish come in. I can't remember how many were there. Not a lot. But I do remember one that was there, and that was shoulders. This was still my obsession, to catch shoulders. You know, I'd seen it on the bank a couple of times now. Desperately, desperately wanted to catch this fish. So in he's come. He's so obvious when he's in the water because he's that odd shape. He's got that great big lump on the top of his head, you know, and that deep chest, and he's just different to all of the others. You can't mistake him. And he's come in with a couple of lesser ones, still good fish. And they've come in, they've done the same up over this green forest, and they're drifting in gin clear water. And he's come straight up shoulders to, he went past the first hole, the one that was a bit patchy, and he's gone up to the left-hand hole, the nice one, the clear one. I've got a bait down there. I've got a bait in both holes, handfuls of hemp round each. Probably had like half a boilie on the end, whatever, but I'm fishing, yeah? And I've got the lines all nice and slack. It's all set up perfectly. So shoulders has come along, gone past the first hole, gone to the second hole, dropped a little bit, and just done like a spiral. Down, 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 out. Gone. He's down now. Little patches of bubbles start coming up. Bing, 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 bing. Right in the hole. I can see, you know, see the bit where the weed isn't, this black circle. See the bubbles. I can see them coming up through the water, coming out the hole, and then bing, bing on the surface. The other fish sort of left him to it. They've gone to the patchy hole. A couple have gone in, and a couple are just milling about, you know. But at no time did any of these other fish bother him. That was his little feeding spot. They left him to it. So after a while, he's come up shoulders, and they've gone for a cruise round the bay. You know, he's not down there ripping it up, but that's where he's feeding the others. So they're milling about. So I'm watching them on and off, on and off. They're coming in. But every time they came in, shoulders had dropped down in this left-hand hole. A few little bubbles had come up. He's eating them. He's down there. I'm thinking I'm getting a bite any second here. From my obsession. The other hole, they're doing whatever. I'm hoping that one don't go, to be honest, because I don't want to spook them all. You know, that's the one I want, and I know exactly where he is. But he was feeding. You know, these ones are buggering about a little bit, but he was feeding down there. So, you know, I'm going to catch him. I'm going to catch him. So I'm up the tree, I'm down the tree, I'm up the tree. It's impossible. I've said this before. If you can be up a tree and see what's happening, it's impossible to sit down the tree. You know, you get down, you sit there, you roll yourself a fag, you're shaking, you open a beer or make a cup of tea or whatever, and you think, I'm just going to stay here because that rod's going to go. Yeah, if you last 3 minutes, you've done well. You think, I'll just have another little look. You know, I haven't had a bite yet, something must have gone wrong, so you're back up the tree and you're looking. You know when you get a bite, you're going to be up the tree. You have to throw yourself out. But anyway, I spent all day up and down this tree, and shoulders spent all day in and out this hole, and the others were milling about. By dark, I'd not had a bite. They were still there in this bay. There was no reason for them to go. I hadn't spooked them. You know, nothing was changing. So eventually, me and Fat Sam gone to bed just under a brolly at the top of the steps. And not long after, one of them heavy summer shower came in. I mean, it was torrential, but only for, you know, half an hour. Came in big black rolling clouds coming across. You know, when the water goes sort of jet black, all you've got is the reflection of these big rain clouds, and the whole light level drops. Can't even hear the planes for a little while. They're above the cloud layer. It's all rolled in, and it started absolutely thrashing down. Now, the alarms I was using at the time had a sensitivity control on them, and they were obviously too sensitive because the rain, they were just going beep, 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 beep. Like that tune, it's good, isn't it? Beep, beep, beep. Driving me mad, you know. I'm trying to go to sleep, and I thought, I ain't having this. So I got out, turned the alarms off, and then gone back, got my head torch, and buggered about, you know, to turn it right down as low as I could get the numbers all numbered, and they won a 5 or whatever. Anyway, turned them all down as low as you can. Sorted it all out, went back to bed. Rain stopped about half an hour later. I went to sleep. Woke up in the morning, you know, sort of, it's light, it's daylight, sun's not up, but it's daylight. First thought is, how the hell have I not had a bite? And how the hell have I not caught shoulders? You know, he's been down there, this little tiny hole. I mean, by the time we got to the bottom, it was probably, you know, dustbin lid size. It wasn't very big. I thought maybe it's because the lines are coming up at such an angle, but I thought so's the weed. So, you know, there's no reason not to get a bite. Anyway, I swung my legs out of bed, sort of woke up properly and looked at the rods and thought, oh shit. The left-hand rod is now bent over the right-hand rod, and the line's singing tight I was only fishing a few yards out, and there's a lot of line out, all out the water, proper tight, from the shoulders hole. I thought, oh my God, how? You know, what the fuck's happened there? Run down to the rods, picked it up. As soon as I picked it up, I noticed the alarm didn't beep. I'd only forgot to turn it back on. I turned them off to do the sensitivity thing and forgot to turn the bloody things back on. Total and utter schoolboy error. It's not the only time I've done it, mind, but, you know, this was an important day or an important night. Yeah, you can't tell what picked up the hook bait, but I saw the only fish that had been feeding in that hole all day long. So I'm thinking, I've got him on the end here, and, you know, I don't know when the bites occurred. You know, it could have been any time in the previous 6 hours or whatever. So I've wound down and given it a big heave-ho, and I mean, nothing. It's left the bay. We're talking, it's gone out the church bay, out into the main section of the lake, and it's buried in something. So I've had to run round and get the punt, which is no mean feat, because you cannot get further from the punt on Horton than the swim I was in. It's as far as you can go. It's not only the opposite end, it's the opposite side. So diametrically, it's like, you know, as far as you can go. So I've run all the way around there. I've got the punt. I can't remember if someone. I think someone came in there with me. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, got the punt back all the way into the church bay. Got the rod, followed the rod out there. Lines going into a weed bed, out of a weed bed, into a weed bed, out. Eventually, we got to the weed bed, you know, where it ends up. And I've heaved it up, I'm hand lining and pulling weed out, and there I see the lead, and that's scary, you know. You see the lead, and then you see the bead and the swivel, and you think, I'd have seen the carp by now. It's still like matted green solidness, and I pulled it gently apart, and I could see the boilie in the hook, and I'm like, no, done my chance, you know. He's been, and he's gone. Like I say, I can't be sure it was it. I'm not going to say, oh, I lost shoulders, but I bloody well did. So to make matters worse, not only did I think in my mind that I'd lost shoulders, I also knew how big it was, or roughly, because, well, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks before that period, before early July time, Wiggy, Alan South, Wiggy of the Insectophobe Salt Circle, had a major result in the mouth of the church bay. I remember I turned up for a session early morning, walking along the causeway, and looked over and I see a big fish come out right in the mouth of the church bay, close in. So I grabbed my gear, I've gone charging around there, me and Fat Sam. Could see that there was no bivvy set up in there. As I've got round the corner closer to the swim, I've seen a bed chair. Heart sunk, you know, 2 rods and a bed chair. Someone's obviously seen them before me, before I got there, and moved in there, you know, last second, which is exactly what had happened, and it was Wiggy. And he sat up and we was having a little chat, and he said he'd seen quite a few fish in there, and he was like rocking confident. And I said, well, I'm going to go opposite into the church bay steps, you know, where I'd put the hemp, and try my luck over there. Good luck, what have you? And off I went. Anyway, shortly after, not long after at all, I've heard a buzzer, looked over, and he's up and he's into a fish, and he's playing this fish, obviously a big fish. So I've legged it round there. It's only a small bay, like run around the other side just to help grab the net. And he's played this fish, and it's running ragged, really. It's all over the place, proper lump, big swirls coming up and that. And I've gone down the front with the net, and I've seen, I know, as soon as it's come halfway up, I can see what it is. Kept my mouth shut until it went in the net. And I said, turned around to him and said, mate, you just caught Jack, you know, and it looks enormous. And sure enough, in the net, Jack the net ripper, just looked biblical, the size of it. So we tried to weigh it. Scales are bouncing about all over the place. It's over 47 pounds, but the needle was giving it all this, which was a big weight for it. So we've called a couple of people round. I think Tony Bad came round, a couple of others anyway. Maybe someone had a tripod. But we weighed it properly. 49 pounds. You know, he's got this Jack at 49 pounds. Amazing. So he put it in a sack, tied it to the front there, flicked the rod back out, started to get the camera stuff sorted. He's had another bite, and he's playing this second fish. I think Tony was down there with the net, or someone was down there with the net. It wasn't me. I was behind, slightly elevated, just looking down, waiting to see it. You know, sort of get, you know, the guessing game, innit? You want to be the first to say or not say, you know, if you think they're going to shit themselves. Anyway, I said, I said their shoulders, mate. And he's playing it, and sure enough, went in the net, and it was shoulders, £41, £41.5, I think. So he's got a 49 and a 40. So he's got over £90 of carp in one brace. I believe, not 100%, but I'm pretty sure at that time that was the biggest brace of carp caught in the UK. I'm it's not 100, but I'm fairly sure that it was. Regardless, it's a monster brace of carp. He's written a really nice story about it actually in a book which I haven't got up here. It's downstairs, which Keith Jenkins put together 2 books, similar books. One was the Horton Chronicles and one was the Raisbury Chronicles, and it's in the Horton Chronicles book along with lots of other stories. Actually, really good book if you can get hold of it. I think it's very hard to get hold of. I knew that if it was that fish I'd hooked and lost, then it was also a £40. It took a little bit of getting over that, to be honest. That hurt, really did hurt, but there you go. I got over it. I carried on. But I did fish around that area quite a lot. That was a good area, that sort of in the Church Bay and the mouth of the Church Bay, and the Hartail swim, which is also like the opposite side in the entrance to the Church Bay. And I remember I went in there sort of late July time, I think it was, something like that. I'd had a really restless day. I'd fished 2 hours here, 2 hours there, 2 hours everywhere. I couldn't settle. I weren't happy anywhere. I don't think I ever even got round to putting the brolly up anywhere, let alone the bed shed, but carting it about, whatever. And it was late. It was sort of evening time. I was sat having a cup of tea with Robbie. I think I must have been set up on the potato field bank on the north bank, and so was he. I weren't confident. I weren't even in my swim. I was sat in his swim, drinking tea, moaning about this, that, and the other. And I kept looking across at the Church Bay and said, I don't know. I really think I should be over there somewhere. And he said, well, look, wind in. He said, I'll help you move. It'll take 2 seconds. You ain't got much gear anyway. Well, grab it, run round there. He was going home anyway. I said, would you? He said, yeah. So boom, did that. Threw it all together. Just laden him up. Off he went with his rigger boots on, stomping round there, a little dwarf. He's gone round there with all his gear, with all my gear, and I've taken the rest of the gear, the rods and what have you, net, dog. Got round there, had a cup of tea, thanked him a lot, he's gone. And I've set up in the Hartail swim. Now, to the left of the Hartail swim, there was another little platform. It was a little tiny wooden platform, totally overgrown, brambles and stuff. But these brambles went down into the lake and they'd started to grow out, and they'd made this sort of overhang of bush actually hanging right over the water. And then a few rod lengths out you had the main weed bed that separated the Church Bay from everywhere else. So I wanted to fish one on the back of this weed bed, but I also looked at this and thought, if these fish have got any sense, they're going to be coming in close here through this thick weed, right under these bushes, and they could sneak in there unmolested. So I pulled the brambles apart, thrashed them down with a stick a little bit, just enough to get a rod in there, and I managed to get out there and sort of give it a weird underarm flick and get it right under this bush. Gone to bed. End of. Next thing I remember, it's just first light, and I'm woken up by an absolute one note, and it's this rod under the bush. It's melting off. This fish is going into Church Bay. So I jumped down there, grabbed the rod, bent into him, playing him back in. And in the swim is a little spindly sort of tree just to the right here. And I remember he's reversed and gone up and gone out towards Springgates Point, gone up to my right. And there was bush. For some reason I got in the lake. I don't take a lot of persuading to get in. I'm always in the bloody lake. But I've stripped off down to my pants and I've got in the lake and I've waded round to get a better angle on this fish. Got out, planned it. Then I realised I've left my net the other side of the tree, which is disaster. Can't get to it because of the tree. So I think I put the rod down, loosened the clutch, run back, got the net, dropped the net down, carried on playing him. And then he's turned the other way and he's gone back into the Church Bay. So I've got back in the lake, gone round the tree and got out. And now the net's the other side of the tree and I'm this side of the tree. It's just a fiasco, absolute fiasco. But luckily, about that moment, another angler, Chris Haswell, has appeared behind me. I could hear him laughing. I'm stood there, I've got the net over here, I've got the rod there, I'm dripping wet, I'm there in my budgie smugglers. And he's come down and he's got the net and gone down the front and given me a hand, bless him. Anyway, the fish has come up, and you can see it's a big old mirror carp, and it's come up, he's netted it, we've pulled it in, it's the unmistakable form of the koi, so called because of its coloration. It's very sort of orangey red colour. It's a beautiful fish, it's a big fish, it's an angry looking fish, it's all its weight's up front, you know, great big head, powerful fish. It had a strange habit. I mean, apart from that one time, early, you know, first day, second day, when Decibel caught it at 41 or whatever it was, it usually only got caught after spawning. And it was one of those fish, I know it was weak-skinned or whatever, but it used to mark up quite badly when it spawned. So you could always tell at a glance if it had spawned or not. It used to recover really quickly, but whenever it was caught, it tended to have quite a lot of marks on it and be at a very low weight. You know, I've seen it on the bank almost concave where it spawned right out. And on this occasion, it had a few marks in it. Not bad, but just had a few marks. I thought, oh, it has dropped some spawn. But amazingly, when we weighed it, it still weighed 39 pounds, which is a big weight for that fish, especially when it's dropped some of its spawn. Big weight. And that's just the way it was in there that year. These fish are just, you know, they were old fish. You'd think they'd plateaued at whatever they were when they went in, but they hadn't. They were growing and growing, you know, so 3-4 different 40s in there, and you know, this thing, big, a few big 30s, and a few on the missing list as well. There were fish that still hadn't been out for a couple of years that could be absolutely enormous. So I'd had my major result. It was, I do remember it was a Friday. It was a Friday. I was there late that week, and I didn't do weekends. You know, the weekends got busy. I left the weekenders to the weekends. I fished midweek. And I packed up and I decided to go the long way back round. So back round the Dog Bay and walk down to the causeway and out that way down to the car park. So I wandered around. I was going home. I'd got round the Dog Bay a couple of the early Friday afternooners had started to sort of turn up. And there was a swim on that far bank called the Lookout. And it was called the Lookout because it was a little bit of a point. I think it had quite a jetty off the front. So from there, you could stand there and look out. You could see quite a lot of the lake. In fact, I think you could see, from the end, I think you could see all of the lake. I believe it was the only swim on the lake where you could see everything. But because this was like a little sticky out bit, it formed another tiny bay, like the Weedy Bay. Not a real bay, but just a little corner. And as I walked past, there are big reeds in the margins. As I walk past, I see something moving there. This is 50 yards up from the shoulder swim that Keith loved. So it gets into this little dead end bay, and I see something swirling there, and there was a lovely big old tree there. So I climbed up the tree, had a look down, and there were fish there, you know, I don't know, 3 or 4, whatever, right in this little corner, somewhere you didn't normally see them, to be honest, maybe in the close season, but not generally during the season, right in the edge there, only shallow. Bits of weed here and there, and I looked down, yeah, there's a couple of 20 pounders and a common, what have you. I thought, I was seeing if there was a target down there. I was due to be going home. I wanted to beat the sort of Friday night rush hour. And then underneath me, this fish came through, and I recognised it as a fish that we called the grey one. And this is a rare one for the bank. This one don't get caught very often at all. It either got called the big grey or just the grey one, depending on who was talking about it. But he's a proper target, you know. He was one that just like I say, rare as rock and all shit, this one. So I pulled my gear down and broke up a few boilies. I remember just a handful of little sort of chops, you know, crumbs. And I've gone snuck down there, and I can see there's like a clear sandy patch. They're coming round and they're going over it and they're going back round the weeds. And when they've done us halfway through a circuit, I put a handful of bait down on this clear sandy patch. And I've shinned back up the tree. I've not got no rods in or anything. Shinned back up the tree, and I'm looking down there. And I've seen them come round. And like I've said, you know, a little while ago, they seemed a bit spooky if they saw something that shouldn't be there, like a pile of bait that weren't there 2 minutes earlier, and they came in and they didn't like it. You could tell they didn't like it. They just accelerated a little bit and did a different circuit. And I thought, that ain't going to work. I can sit here forever. I ain't going to get a bite like that. So I've gone down there and I put a single boilie on, and I flicked it round under the tree that I'd been climbing. I thought I've seen them use that circuit. As I was watching them, they'd disappear under the fronds and then they'd reappear. And I thought, just a single boilie down there in the murk, in the silt, scrubby weed, they might have that. So I flicked it down there and I've laid the rod up against the reeds. And I remember laying down in the grass, like long grass, it was quite warm. I think I nodded off a little bit. I was really knackered at the end of the session, you know, and I'm just sort of laying there. I can hear the gate used to squeak like mad, the car gate for the car park. I could hear that clang, and I thought they're turning up in their droves, you know, Friday night. And I'm just laid there in the grass and suddenly bang, it's away, you know. I thought, touch, so I jump up there. Bear in mind there's a few fish there that it could have been, and I've hooked into this fish. It didn't take it wasn't a major fight because it's in this little corner, but I've given it some teddy and it's gone round and round and come up, got in the net. It's only the bloody grey one, you know. It was just like, I couldn't put a foot wrong that year. I really couldn't put a foot wrong. And he's got in the net and it's the grey one, and I think he was 30 pounder. I think it was like 30.5 pounds or something. Just in time, I got him on the bank just in time as the anglers started arriving. I had someone there to take the photos and what have you. So I'm there with this amazing looking carp, and like I say, a proper rare old character. So that was me. That was amazing session. Packed it all away, did the photos, put the fish back, packed it all away, and shot off home. And I remember as I got in the car park, little Robbie had just pulled in, and he came up to me and he was like, he was well chuffed that, you know, he'd helped me move and it had worked and I'd caught the koi, and then obviously I'd moved on and stalked this grey one. But he was always full of confidence, Robbie. Like I say, he hadn't had a big one up until now. He hadn't had many fish at all, but he was always got a plan, you know. This going to do this, going to do that rover, going to do this rover. Anyway, this week his plan was, every time we got a bag of bulk bait off of mainline, what had happened is, because we were the only ones using this exact mix with this flavour in at that time, whatever was left, if there was a bit of paste left on the end of the machine, they'd just roll it like that for a laugh into this sodding great boilie and put it in the boiler and chuck it in the bag. So each bag you opened had one or two of these. They could be anything from 30 to 50 mil. This just offcuts, and they only chucked them in there just for a giggle. But Robbie had been collecting them all, and this was his great big plan. He was going to use one of these proper donkey choker, great big things, and he was going to catch the big, and he was going to have shoulders, or he was going to have CPs, or he was going to have whatever on these great big donkey chokers. And I was like, yeah, right, okay. And off he went. I got in the car, chuckling away at myself, set off down the M25 for home. But what happened next was actually quite a story. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that for a couple of days' time, because I think I've been rabbiting on forever, actually, as it goes. And I've got to go downstairs and put this in some semblance of order for you lot to watch tonight, hopefully. So before we go, messages. Thank you very much. Getting loads from all over the place, all well appreciated. And like I said before, all get read. Most of them get answered if I can, if I have time. But they all get read, so don't stop sending them. Books, I'm going to put the link at the bottom again, so if you are interested in either Flick of the Tail or Fine Lines, 15 or 25 quid, there is £3 postage on them. One thing quite a few people have messaged me is, can you, if they want them both, can I send them both out together? I can't, because it weighs over 2 kilos. If you put them both in a box, it's actually more expensive for you than £3 each for postage. And the website's only set up to single buy, because it's just, you know, a basic website. I'm not Debenhams, I'm just me with a couple of books. So yeah, if you are interested in a book, the link, if you scroll down after this, the link is just below at the bottom there. Right, so finally, last thing of the day, I promise. In the messages, the various messages and emails and you know, whatever that comes to me from you, loads of people have said, you know, obviously this has now become a full-time thing. You know, every day I'm doing something towards these. Why don't you monetize the site? And basically what that means is sticking an advert at the beginning. And no one wants that today, you know. Who wants to sit there and look through an advert of some bloke trying to sell you, I don't know, hairpiece, Viagra, a new shed, a holiday you can't afford? You know, it's not happening. The only other way is to charge people to view it. And, you know, I'm well aware that 99% of you people watching this are in the same boat as me. You've been stood down for the duration. Yeah, so money is tight. So that's not happening either. A couple of people have actually PayPal'd me a £5 and said get a pint, which I thought was a nice little touch. So what I've done is on the link below, on the book link, if you click on that, it takes you to my website. There should be a new little button, like a pint of beer. If you do want to buy me a beer for it, you click on that. I think it takes a £5 off you. It's not, you know, it's voluntary. You don't feel that you've got to do it. Just so many people have said, you know, we'd like to buy you a beer for doing it. Then it's there if you want to, but you know, it's not a begging letter. It's just there if you feel like it. Anyway, so we come to the end for today, and talking about pints, it's made me a little bit thirsty. So I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to sit in front of the editing suite, crack open a cider, and put this together to chuck out later tonight. So until next time, stay safe. Ta-da.